Good to have you with us on this Friday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We are going to get started this Friday with the latest, of course, in the race for the White House, the final sprint to Election Day. With just 4 days to go, both candidates are expected to crisscross the country this weekend in a last-ditch dash to reel in undecided voters in those all-important battleground states.
Yesterday, former President Donald Trump campaigned in Arizona and Nevada, where he focused on one of his key issues, immigration. Mr. Trump again courted controversy by using violent imagery to suggest that his Republican rival, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, should be targeted.
But the reason she couldn't stand me is that she always wanted to go to war with people. I don't want to go to war. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
Also campaigning in Nevada was his rival, Vice President Kamala Harris. She was joined by singer Jennifer Lopez in Las Vegas. The appearance of the Puerto Rican star comes nearly a week after comedian Tony Hinchcliffe made that offensive joke about Puerto Rico at a Trump rally in New York. The vice president urged her supporters to turn their back on Mr. Trump's rhetoric. Joining us now for a closer look at all this, NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns, who's following the Trump campaign, and White House correspondent Monica Alba, who's watching the Harris campaign. Good morning to both of you. Dasha, let's start right there. Tell us a little more about this personal attack on Liz Cheney, and she's now responding, right?
Yeah, Joe, good morning. We just got a response from Liz Cheney just moments ago. Let me just read to you what she said. She posted on X saying, "This is how dictators destroy free nations. They threaten those who speak against them with death. We cannot entrust our country and our freedom to a petty, vindictive, cruel, unstable man who wants to be a tyrant," with the hashtag "women will not be silenced," hashtag vote Kamala. Now, this, of course, Joe, does come in the context of this massive gender gap that we've been seeing between the two campaigns. Republican allies are defending these comments, saying, yeah, maybe he chose his words poorly, but he was trying to make a point about war hawks and warmongering. Democrats, of course, with Liz Cheney here saying this is an unacceptable violent rhetoric. Joe.
Monica, let's bring you in here. We mentioned this a second ago. We saw Vice President Harris seize on 2 big controversies coming out of the Trump campaign. First is the issue of Latino voters and that joke about Puerto Rico. We just mentioned that appearance by Jennifer Lopez. The second now is Mr. Trump's comment about protecting women, where he said whether they like it or not. Talk to us about how she's pushing back on those 2 issues and using them in her campaign.
Yeah, the vice president brought that up repeatedly yesterday, and she's certainly going to continue to lean into that message. And this is about trying to amplify her closing argument, which is not just to focus on the former president's rhetoric, but to think about, she says, his actions, what he has promised to do if he is reelected and is back in the White House, and what he would do when it comes to reproductive freedom, or what he would do when it comes to health care and these major issues. And she tried to lay that out yesterday. Here's a little more of what she had to say to our own colleague Yamiche Alcindor.
His latest comment is just the most recent in a series of examples that we have seen from him in his words and deeds about how he devalues the ability of women to have the choice and the freedom to make decisions about their own body.
And I have to tell you, Savannah and Joe, the Harris campaign is already also seizing on those comments that the former president made about former Congresswoman Liz Cheney last night. They're amplifying that this morning, and I think you can expect the vice president and all of her surrogates to lean into that as well, again, when it comes to trying to warn about what the former president is saying he would do to some of his critics and detractors if he's back in the White House.
Dasha, let's talk about some of the other key moments from Mr. Trump's rallies in Nevada and Arizona yesterday. We know immigration is a huge part of his campaign in any state, but especially with one of those being a border state. He really did lean into that, right?
Yeah, look, Joe, the more you listen to him in these closing days, the more it's becoming clear that he really does believe that immigration is the key issue in this race. That's what's going to galvanize voters, including Latino voters, which might sound counterintuitive, but a lot of his Latino supporters do agree with his immigration policy. And guys, the other piece that we've been seeing over the last 24 hours or so is he's been talking about what a future Trump administration might look like. He said last night that he wants RFK Jr. to come in and on the issue of health, quote, do whatever he wants, including potentially take a look at vaccines, which, of course, RFK Jr. has made a name for himself as a vaccine skeptic. He also said that he wants Elon Musk to come in and slash the federal budget, potentially as much as $2 trillion a year, which of course would have massive ripple effects. So just a glimpse of the kinds of folks that he wants to bring into his administration and what he wants them to tackle, guys.
And Monica, we understand Harris, for her part, is heading back to Wisconsin later today. What can we expect there? And what do we think we'll see over the weekend, final weekend before the election?
And she's going to be visiting a union hall today in Wisconsin, and then she's going to be holding a couple of those get out the vote rallies like we've seen the last couple of days to amplify that economic message. And then this weekend, she is going to be traveling tomorrow to Atlanta, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina, so those two critical states. And then Sunday, she's going to spend almost the entirety of the day in Michigan with some stops in Detroit, and she's going to close out her campaign on Monday with at least 4 stops in all important Pennsylvania. So really just trying to hit all these final battlegrounds in somewhat of a blitz in these closing hours, Savannah and Joe.
All right, Dasha and Monica, thank you both.
Well, the legal battle over billionaire Elon Musk's lottery-style giveaway tied to the election is heating up. He was supposed to show up in a Pennsylvania court to respond to a lawsuit filed by the Philadelphia district attorney, who's arguing Musk and his pro-Trump super PAC are running what amounts to an illegal lottery. But his lawyers had other ideas. They're trying to get the case moved to federal court. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has the details.
Musk a no-show in court despite an order from the judge, as his legal team now tries to fend off a civil suit brought by Philadelphia's Democratic DA, which accuses the tech billionaire and his pro-Trump super PAC of operating an unlawful lottery.
This is a case that involves state law issues.
Lawyers for Musk fighting back, successfully getting the case put on ice for now by filing paperwork to move it over to federal court. Musk under scrutiny for potentially interfering with the federal election, since announcing he'd randomly award prize money on a daily basis to swing state voters who sign a pledge in favor of First and Second Amendment rights.
If you already believe in the Constitution, you're just signing something you already believe, and you can win $1 million.
The Justice Department sending a warning letter last week that the giveaway could be illegal, as federal law prohibits paying people to register to vote. But no criminal charges have been filed.
Take over, Elijah. Take over.
This as Musk remains one of former President Trump's most visible and energetic supporters this election.
I think this election, I think it's the most important election of our lifetime.
Frequently sharing pro-Trump content with his 200 million plus followers on X. And researchers say since taking the reins of what was formerly Twitter, he's made changes that's resulted in more far-right content being amplified. His PAC now running an aggressive get-out-the-vote operation. Tonight, his swing state sweepstakes climbing to $13 million winners and counting. Laura Jarrett, NBC News.
As millions of Americans get ready to cast their ballots, some are preparing to do so from behind bars. Now, most states ban convicted felons from voting, but people who are in jail and awaiting trial still have the right to vote. And with the presidential candidates looking for every last vote they can get, activists in swing states like Pennsylvania are working to mobilize this often overlooked group. NBC News Washington correspondent Michelle Sindor was given rare access inside the Allegheny County Jail in Pittsburgh to see how prisoners' votes could make a difference in this incredibly tight race.
With just days to go until Election Day, these workers are organizing the ballots of an often forgotten voting bloc, incarcerated Americans.
For each other.
The Allegheny County Jail in Pittsburgh is one of a number of correctional facilities, making sure people behind bars get the opportunity to vote.
There are definitely individuals who probably have never voted before, so we want to make sure that they know who the candidates are and, how to take action to provide their voice.
In Pennsylvania, as in most states, incarcerated people who are awaiting trial or serving time for a misdemeanor can vote. though a handful of states block anyone charged with election-related crimes. Gerald Conklin, who is charged with a probation violation, knows every ballot is important in this battleground state.
My one vote may be the deciding factor who gets the presidency.
He is one of about 23,000 people in jails across Pennsylvania, a state President Biden won in 2020 by just 80,000 votes. This year, polls show another incredibly tight presidential race, with the Keystone State a contest neither candidate can likely afford to lose. A recent voluntary poll by criminal justice advocate the Marshall Project found roughly half of 54,000 people surveyed in jails and prisons would vote for former President Donald Trump.
Most of the guys on the block are wanting President Trump. I mean, there's a couple that's talked about Kamala Harris.
You know, I'm still part of the community, even though I'm behind these walls.
Angela Smith has been at this facility for almost a year, serving time for a misdemeanor DUI. A registered Republican for more than 20 years, she's planning to vote for Trump.
I just feel that they pulled up a lot of stuff on him that they could pull that up on anybody if they wanted to. I can relate to him. I can relate to what he's going through.
James McClinton, who is here on a probation violation and other pending charges, would not share who he's voting for.
If you vote for a certain person, then you might not be in this situation, or it might make, might not have to be here as long.
Most states ban convicted felons from voting while in custody, but some 450,000 people who are in jail awaiting trial do have the right to vote. The legal and logistical hurdles make it difficult, sometimes impossible. At least 9 states and D.C. recently enacted laws to improve voting access, making it easier to register and vote by mail or in person. And this year, Colorado became the first state to require voting services in its jails and detention centers.
Just because we're in jail doesn't mean that we still don't have rights, that we should be able to vote. We made a mistake. Everybody else is just one mistake from being where we're at.
Yamisha Alcindor, NBC News, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Well, the unseasonably warm weather that had people trick-or-treating in shorts isn't leaving the Northeast just yet. For more details on what we can expect for the weekend, let's get your morning news now. Weather.
Hey, meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here. I can't remember a Halloween like this one in a long time, if ever.
I know, it was crazy. I drove in about 1:30. Cute little costumes, no signs of sweaters, coats, and we're going to keep it warm today, actually. We have one more day before we kind of get back to normal. So this is what today looks like. We have a cold front moving through. That's going to bring maybe a sprinkle, a light shower. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a whole lot of rain with this. We need it in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, New England, but we're not going to get that. It's going to move through, and then it's going to usher in some cooler air, more seasonal temperatures. So as you're out and about on Saturday, Sunday, in these parts of the country, the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, New England, we're going to see temperatures in the 40s and 50s. So today, once again, record highs, especially in parts of the Northeast, parts of New England, but much cooler behind there. Strong storms in parts of the Southern Plains. We're going to really ramp up that threat as we head towards Saturday. And in the Pacific Northwest, we're watching some heavy rain. We could see some rain where you're seeing the green, those darker colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows. And then you notice some blue, some white. That is mountain snow. And that's going to move off to the east as we head towards Saturday. So as we near the weekend here, we're kicking off the weekend with severe storms in the middle of the country, especially in western Texas. We could see some really large hail, 2 inches or greater. The chance of tornadoes, heavy rainfall, that's going to lead to some flooding. So we're going to watch that very closely. But this rain extends into the central plains. Much cooler along the east coast. Again, temperatures back near normal into the 50s. And then watch that rain and snow in the west moving into the Intermountain West. We're going to see some accumulating snow there, especially on Sunday in the Rockies, where you see that white. That is the highest amounts of snow expected. But notice all this wet weather in the middle of the country, from the northern plains to the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, into the central plains, the southern plains. Again, where you see these brighter colors, that's where we're expecting the heavier rain. Could see some thunderstorms too, especially in the southern plains. And then more warm throughout the southeast on Sunday, and then more seasonal still on Sunday before we actually warm it back up as we head towards next week. So temperatures today, 78 degrees still in New York City, where that's 20 degrees above normal on November 1st. Richmond, 80 degrees, 81 in Raleigh. There's that cold front that's going to bring just a little bit of rain. You don't really need the umbrella, maybe just a hood if that, because we may just see some sprinkles in spots. Behind that, we're looking at temperatures at average or below average. So Minneapolis, 3 degrees below what is typical for this time of year. 46 today, 53 in Detroit, 61 in St. Louis. Then we're going to build that warmth back in. That's going to bring the threat or enhance the risk for those severe storms in the southern plains. But notice all these temperatures back above normal in the middle of the country. Minneapolis, 57. Big difference from today. We're going to add on about 11 degrees, 60 in Omaha, Chicago, 60 degrees, 67 in St. Louis. And look at all those 70s and 80s in portions of the Tennessee Valley into the southeast. Now, notice New York City as we go through early next week. Sunday, there's your average temperature, 57 degrees, 60 on Monday. So still feeling right around normal. It's typical for November. Then we're back into the 70s by Tuesday. Same story in Pittsburgh. Monday, 73. Tuesday, near 80 degrees. So we continue that roller coaster ride throughout this fall, and we're going to continue that throughout next week as well. We have an enhanced risk for fire danger. It is so dry. We need that water. We need the fresh water falling from the sky. We're not going to see it. Again, could see a few sprinkles. That's about it. 38 million people under the risk for fire danger because we're going to see those winds gusting with that cold front moving through. Low humidity, dry fuels. It's going to increase the risk for that fire danger. There's that cold front today, those early showers. A few storms could develop near the central Gulf Coast, but it really enhances tomorrow. So we tap into that warm air that I showed you. In the middle of the country, we're looking at severe storms forming in West Texas during the afternoon to evening hours. Could see some tornadoes with any of these storms. And then we're going to see those storm chances extending north into Kansas. And then that rain really expands on Sunday. So the middle of the country, you need your umbrella if you do have Sunday plans from really the Great Lakes all the way to the south central states.
Wow. All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Sure.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.